Hello, I'm at my most favorite restaurant, and since PewDiePie started reading, and I have read about 1,000 books throughout my life, and he was bragging he has read like 70 a year, and I was always about like reading 90 books a year for years, like every third day a book. I decided that I'm gonna tell you about my most favorite books and the ones you might not want to lose lifetime upon. So my most favorite book was the first one I have read, and it's a book about penguins. When I had it gotten from the library and was starting to read it in the train, by the time we were eating dinner, I was finished with the book. So that's how I got into reading. Then I continued with the 3 question marks. I read about every one of those, die 3 Fragezeichen. Then I soon got into, well, then people were giving me books as presents. So one was the day that Hitler was stealing the pink rabbit, something like that, about the climate change and the radioactive power stations being a danger. I remember. Then I read by Franz Hohler, which is a Swiss-German author. He has written books that were read out aloud to me when I was a child. Chippo. It's about a boy dreaming, and when he wakes up in the morning, whatever he has dreamt was around. So he was in the water when he was dreaming about the sea and stuff like that. So these kind of books, I don't remember the titles anymore. That's why I'm not putting them down on this thing here. Because the next thing that I have written here was The Mountain of the Miracles by Thomas Mann. It's a story I will never forget about someone from Germany that came to Switzerland into a rehab, rehab clinic, and he then describes all the people, their manners, and how they were towards each other. And because I grew up in different foster schools, I just love these kind of books. People that are bound to be with each other because they are at an institution. So maybe you gotta know that before you start reading my most favorite books. So that one was Thomas Mann. He has written some other book, very short book, because this one here, when you translate that in English, it's a real thick book. But then he has also written about his dog, and it's a very thin book, and he describes he describes people. Now he describes his dog. So I would recommend, it's just called The Dog, I guess. So that one was Thomas Mann. And don't read Katja Mann, his daughter, and stuff like that. So the next would be Max Frisch. The book which I loved most from him was called Stiller. It's a story about a man traveling through Italy via this street which is called Via Appia, and he is meeting someone there he falls in love with. And I don't want to spoil the book for you, so read it. The other one, Homo Faber, is very famous, so don't read it. It's just, I have written every book by him, even Montauk, his diary style books. So I really love Max Frisch a lot. So you can read every book by him, of course. But if you want to go through this so-called, we call it Matura when you have a university degree in Switzerland, whereas you can then go study. So when you do this one, you have to have a test in German, and there they want you to have been firm about German literature. So there is a list about books you have to read few of. So there is Thomas Mann on it, there is Goethe, Schiller, Dürrenmatt, Brecht, Borchert, all the ones that I'm going to mention on that list. But I will recommend the good ones for you to read. So Max Frisch, Swiss-German author and architect as well. He is on that list as well, probably for his book Homo Faber. But Stiller is just as good. And he is most famous for writing in a manner that is more not like this kind of, a fable and using lots of fancy words. He called his novel what is Bericht in English? I don't know this word. It's snowing really heavily here, so I'm like, So if you read books by Max Frisch, you will find out that he is very different about writing in German, even though he's not a German, he's a Swiss German. So it is notable that he wrote that he's not like having the title on his book, which is Stiller, and then it says a novel. No, it says ein Bericht. He pretends as if though this would be something you read like from a newspaper. It's true, but actually he made it up, just as novels are made up. So next would be Dürrenmatt. It's The Visit of the Old Lady, which is very interesting to read by him, and you will have a lot of people meeting that have, when they have read something by him, it was that one. And then there is also The Chinese Wall, I guess, by him. We once were rehearsing that one so that we would, have it as a play. And I was playing Brutus there. So he's very modern in a way as well. Then the most loved book by Brecht, a German author, is My Name Shall Be Gantenbein. It's a story about someone that pretends to be blind. So he describes all the ways the people pretend that they have been doing the cooking when their visit arrives, instead of actually telling the truth. That Gantenbein, the blind one, has been cooking. So they would put on some Schürze, it is called, something that you put around your waist when you do the cooking. So by these things, people think that he does not see how they betray him in a way. But of course, since he's not blind, he can describe it all. So that book is really good. Then Borchert is a after-war kind of great poet, but if you read his short stories, I really got bored reading them. One Sunday I fought myself through his book, and it's just so depressing, and I don't really love this short story thing that he's going on, so I wouldn't recommend Borchert. Then we have Goethe. Of course, everyone knows Faust 1, but I would recommend that you go reading Faust 2 as well. There you can see how, Faust 2, about the devil and this and that. It's not really that you can gain something out of this book, unless you are a Freemason, I guess. And also other books by him, plays I have read, like Wallenstein. I really fought myself through all this bullshit, but now I can tell you that by Goethe, you rather go reading the scientific books that he has out about color theory and the weather. He's not describing chemtrails in any of his weather explanations. He did look at the weather every day, and he put it down in a diary as if though, he was describing the weather. So that one we once did while we were on the Mediterranean Sea, looking at his words about the weather. He was really into a lot of things, so his experiments about the light and how color is created and perceived by our eyes is another book, or kind of part out of his scientific writing, that you really can buy the whole scientific thing, 10 books that would be, and then you can just go brush over certain topics in there and you will have it all. That one is really interesting. By Goethe, this is. So he was a rich man, he really had the time to do all these things, and so I would recommend that one by Goethe. Then Schiller was rather poor and a bit more frustrated, probably, than Goethe. So by Schiller, he has this kind of revolutionary thing out, which is called The Robbers. That one is really nice to read if you have to read something by Schiller. Otherwise, Schiller, I wouldn't read any novels by him. I would recommend you go reading the poems. Even by Goethe, there are some good poems out. So the famous ones, they are known by everyone. So go and read them, because they're really good. We used to memorize them at school, and they really have surprising endings, and they aren't boring at all. They are long, of course, but they're good. So, having said that, there is an English guy, he's called Shakespeare, and Othello, Hamlet by him is good as well, because the elite once thought that they would have to put up with the Gaelic and wanted to get a language for the whole world, starting with Great Britain, so they invented English by the King James Bible. So they translated the Latin Bible into this new language, and also Shakespeare was out with all his plays, and they would let people travel around in Great Britain and perform these plays, and it was mandatory to attend at these plays. So these plays by Shakespeare, like Romeo and Juliet, read any of these. We once were performing A Midsummer Night's Dream. All of them are highly Masonic. You don't get anything out of it unless you know about the symbology. But I can recommend any of them. I was a fairy when we played A Midsummer Night's Dream, so I had the lines thorny something hedgehog, be not seen, something like that. And also it is a lot about magical things. That's why I say you cannot learn anything the same as with Faust, because if you don't know about the Freemasonry symbology, you don't really know what to make of this character, which is Mephisto, the devil. The same now with Shakespeare. So then there is some Greek writers like Euripides, Iphigenie von Tauris, the frogs, whatever you want to get there, you can go and get it and read it. There is so-called nothing wrong to read Plato's Republic. If you want to read the class of 1984, you can as well read 1984 or any of these also Masonic writings that tell you what the Agenda 21, which is a United Nations paper, wants to be the rule for all of us. So then, besides reading all these classics, next we get into the women's books.